You're listening to the Bible Belt Bros podcast with my dad and his dumb friend. Enjoy!
So, if you guys didn't notice, we took a week off.
We've been trying to get this guy on the show, and just scheduling is just not working out. We found somebody better anyway.
100% better.
100% better. Better because he's
He's just better all around.
better all around. Yes.
Right. And it's the one, the only, Jordan Fisher.
What? You guys have the same last name.
Oh my goodness, we do. What a coincidence, dude.
Coincidence it is.
So, Jordan is actually my brother. We've had my dad on here, and we got good reviews about my dad, so we figured, let's try my brother.
Don't suck.
That's Maya.
Yeah, that's Maya.
Well, I just meant in general. Just don't
Don't suck.
Don't
yeah,
suck.
That's true.
Dad set a standard. Now you have to.
Live up to it.
Yes. Actually, you have to beat it.
Ooh.
You have to be better than Dad.
So you have how many brothers, Andrew? 4?
3.
3.
There's 4 boys.
Oh yeah.
I have 3 brothers.
I'm your brother.
True this. So yeah, Jordan is a brother like right below me, and he's the best brother. I guess in everything.
Is he the smartest?
Yeah, he's definitely the smartest.
Is he most athletic?
No, he is pretty athletic. At least he's not afraid to play football like my other brother.
Cough, cough.
But Jeremiah is amazing at baseball, and I see him going places with baseball.
Oh, why aren't we interviewing him?
Because this is an
No offense, Jordan, but
this is an
come on.
intelligent podcast.
Right?
It's not like Maya has a very big IQ.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. So, anyways, Jordan, you are known to be on Twitter all the time. Let's see. How many Twitter followers do you have, Andrew?
Oh, hold on 1 second. That's going. I have 13.
13?
13 followers. 13. I don't even think you follow me on Twitter, dude.
I actually don't. I actually don't follow friends on Twitter that I have a better relationship on Facebook, I guess.
Gotcha.
I usually use Twitter for celebrity stuff like that. Try not to cross the platform.
Gotcha. Don't cross streams.
Exactly.
I got you.
It's just a rule I've applied at all areas of my life.
So, how many followers you got?
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm checking FanDuel right now just to see how much money I'm not winning. And I'm not winning anything. But there's still hope. I got 129 followers.
Ooh, 10 times the number I do.
Yeah, but I look on there, and some of these guys are, where you get followed, like because I play fantasy sports, so I'm followed by Daily Fantasy Nerd, Fantasy Cash Hog,
Oh, gotcha.
DFS Report. So they're trying to get me to follow them back, basically.
Okay, I got you.
Stupids! I probably only have 29 actual friends.
So, Jordan, how many do you have?
Like 135?
130. Man, Dusty,
Dude.
you almost have as much as him.
Okay, so I need 6 of you guys, 6 listeners. Please follow me on Twitter. Actually, I need 7. Let's just go above and beyond here, so I can have more.
I'm at 135,000.
What?
135,000 followers.
135000.
Like 6 digits.
Wow.
Okay, if all of Jordan's followers just gave $1 to this podcast, we would have how much money?
I need to do this. Donate to the Jordan Fisher charity.
Dang!
fund.
So you have how did you get all these followers? Did you just relationships that you built
Yeah,
through the
like
years?
I started like 4 or 5 years ago, and it's gone from there. Crazy stuff happens. I don't really know.
So, you started this when you were still in high school?
Yeah,
Started the Twitter.
Jeez.
way
crazy.
back when.
135,000, dude.
Well,
That's just
here's the
mind-blowing.
deal. One of our listeners to this podcast has a major influence.
You're right.
So why are you subscribed to our podcast?
I think so. I'm not like 100% sure how to subscribe to him. I'm gonna be honest. This is the only podcast I've ever listened to.
Well, that's a good start.
Hey, me too. Don't tell anybody.
I have not seen a review from you. We've asked all of our friends and family subscribe, rate, and review this podcast.
This is true.
So
Numerous times
Drop
it's been
the
on my
ball.
you've dropped
Yep,
it.
yep.
But there's still maybe what we find out is if we actually have you on the podcast, then maybe you'll share it.
I was waiting for you to get all of them done, then I could review the whole thing.
There you
Oh.
go.
It's like a book. You can't review it till it's all done.
Well, that's not what we did.
Exactly.
That's
Yeah,
what
we-
this whole podcast is about.
We took the book chapter by chapter. Oh, speaking of one quick story before we actually get started. So my wife was sent on a work trip to Houston, and we have family in Houston. So we visited them and kind of took an extra couple days since the company's paying for our flights to Houston. Pretty sweet. And on the way back, my sister is not dating this guy, but is wants to date this guy, I guess you could say. They've been hanging out a lot. And he's kind of, I think he's from Brazil or something, and he kind of travels around, does worship music stuff. And they've done some videos online of them singing together. It's pretty cool. But anyway, so we're in the airport of Houston, and this guy walks into the bathroom, and my wife goes, "I think that's Crystal's friend." And I was like, "What do you want me to do? Like walk next to him in the urinal and go, 'Hey, dude, do you know my sister?'" I mean, I don't know what to expect from there. I was like, "Nah, I mean, it can't be. The dude's like, I knew he was getting ready to leave my sister, but I didn't know where he was going, which next city. And I thought he had actually already had left. And so, anyways, he walks out of the bathroom, and I was like, all right, I'll walk up to this weird guy and say, so I was like, "Hey, man, what's your name?" And he's like, "Yeah." And I was like, "Do you know my sister?" I'm already confused. Like, maybe this is the guy. And I'm like, "Do you know my sister Crystal?" And he's like, "Dude, I do." And it's like, so it's just, I've never met this guy before. I've just seen him on videos online, and it's just kind of like crazy world. Like, he was on his way traveling. He was in the wrong part of the airport, which was really funny. But he was on a 2-hour layover, and so it's just crazy small
So you
world.
didn't cross streams with
We
him?
didn't cross streams, no. And I said, "Get away from my sister," and I left. No, I'm joking. I'm joking. He seemed like a nice guy.
Sorry, Crystal.
Sorry, Crystal. You're single forever.
Yep, because of Dusty.
So, all right, let's get to what we've learned so far in the podcast. Here in a second.
All right, Dusty, what have we learned so far?
Nothing. No, I'm joking. I've learned a lot. I think that there's a lot of things that I have learned, and I do agree with on the stances that he takes. I think the only thing I've really disagreed with Frankie in this book has been the application of it. I think that's really the only part where I'm kind of like, dude, come on now, like.
So you think pastors are useless and shouldn't get paid?
And
Just say it, dude. You don't have to apologize to anyone.
not in the current the way the churches are the way the churches
Modeled.
operate now. No, the pastors, most pastors aren't. There's some pastors that are, but I mean, in any profession, you could have that argument that there's some people that are worthless CEOs of companies.
Right. And I'll agree to an extent. I don't believe that pastors should be paid as much as some pastors make. Definitely don't make it. It's not a job to be a get rich quick scheme. Yeah, I need Jordan. That's why we have Jordan.
Grammar and spelling.
Yes.
Spell
were
check
you-
your voice.
Yeah, spell check. Spell check his voice, please.
He's going to be my. He's going to be that beep noise, and then he's going to fill in the word.
The little asterisk.
Yes.
Or you can say, country of origin, please. Tell us where it's from. Since you're on Twitter probably right now, so just go ahead and just ask your friends.
I'm sure you got somebody smart on there. So, yeah, I don't think it should be a get rich quick scheme type thing, where they're making millions of dollars.
Not even
off-
get rich quick, but it shouldn't just be a way that you can get by making a living. I really think that the call of a pastor is more than a career, I guess. And so the problem with with what I have is kind of the same thing that Frankie has had, is that too often the career of a pastor is based on how much schooling they've had, everything that your job is based off of when you're working in a secular market. And so based on your experience and your history of, your education, all that stuff comes into making how much money you're going to make as a pastor. And there's step ladders to success in the church, where you start off as a intern, and then you work your way up through the youth ministry, music ministry, to the youth ministry, to associate pastor, to senior pastor, and the pay scale follows that line, I guess. And,
Well, where'd children's pastor go?
you
gotta hit
See, when
children's
I grew up,
pastor
there wasn't
first.
even children's pastors, so that's another story. But so I guess that's where that's kind of where I have a problem with, I guess, on that part of the topic.
Well, I do see that it shouldn't be commercialized. It shouldn't be like corporate America, where your if you're calling to is as a youth pastor, you should probably be a youth pastor, and
But if
don't
you want
use
to
it
help
as
provide for your family or whatever and keep growing, you're going to naturally
become a pastor,
become a pastor.
right? Even
And,
if that's not your calling.
and some people will say, well, because they're getting older, they don't relate well. Well, that's really not true.
No,
You
God,
know, I've seen lots of youth pastors that
old
were
youth pastors.
old, and they knew how to reach kids, and knew that the fact that it wasn't the flashiness that stood the test of time. It was the relationship side of it.
So, what did you learn about the church building, Dusty?
What did I learn about the church building?
The building. That was
Echo,
like our,
echo. I just echoed it. Nothing new, really. I mean, I come from a church plant that kind of has those feelings about the church
buildings,
building,
right?
and so, which we have a church building now, but but we grew up with the model of it's not about the building, and so I've already kind of had that mindset. I still feel like it's hard because you want like a central meeting place, and so we end up building a building to make that more convenient, I guess, especially if we're going to add all the lights and the haze and the production side of it. It's really hard to start setting up hours and hours and hours a week for a 1 hour service. Kind of seems pointless. But at the same time, then you're paying all this money for a building you meet in once a week. Kind of sucks too.
It does. And that's that's why I like churches that use their building as multi-purpose building. They don't have separate rooms, that are dedicated to like the nursery or dedicated to offices. Just all the walls are removable, and you can use that space for something else every day.
So what about having secular multi-use buildings that are used for the church?
I would like that.
That's
Especially if it's a secular. Yeah.
That's kind of what
That's
I'm
an outreach.
more passionate about, and I don't really necessarily feel like meeting corporately as a huge group of people to.
So, like, say the community building here in town, the Case Community Center.
Yeah, but I don't think that's something we have to do every Sunday, I guess.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
Like I feel like focusing more, like the church in Acts, they met daily in their homes and their relationships with their people and their friends and their families that were with them, and I think if we focus on having some of that attitude.
Hey, when did Focus get a T?
Where's my grammar? Come on.
Asterisk.
Thank you, Jordan.
But I don't know. For me, I feel like maybe if we focus a little bit more on the day-to-day aspect and less on the Sunday morning aspect, I think that might bring some change, some good
Well,
change.
That would definitely bring change. But again, as I said back on what day was, or what chapter was that? Not the church. Was it the church building? Hold on.
That's what we're talking about.
Tithing, baptism. Yeah, I guess it was. That's why I said back on the church building. We still have to have that building though, because say we met at the Case Community Center once a month for corporate worship or whatever, people aren't going to know we're there. And that's why I've always been an advocate for having an actual physical, hard structured church building.
But they would know you're there if you're involved with them on a day-to-day basis. If you're involved with your neighbors, that's going to come up in a conversation. You know what I mean? Like
Your neighbors
the
will, but
church's
what about
marketing
the
idea is so focused on we need a big building and a big sign, so when people drive by, they will want to come. That's
not necessarily so that they want to come, it's so that they know you are there.
So that they know, like, when they drive by, they have somewhere to go when they need help.
So when I drove to your
Exactly.
house, I passed probably 8 churches. So I knew when I drove to your house, I can go to any of these churches.
That's right.
These all are great.
I wouldn't say that
Well,
because
how would I know?
because I know one of the churches you passed, it's not great.
They have, like, Yelp for church.
There's an app for that. That would be funny.
Dude, do they? We should start that.
Talk about creating.
$1 million idea.
Talk about creating an app for the American idea of church. That it's all about our wants and our needs,
Our comfort zones,
and our
right?
comforts, and our.
If they don't have Krispy Kreme donuts and Starbucks coffee, I am not going
Yeah.
there.
4 stars because they did not give away free coffee. 3.5 stars because the preaching was too long. That would.
1 star because I got to the restaurant late for the lunch rush.
Yeah, exactly. I missed kickoff in the football game.
All right, so getting back to what I was saying, Dusty, I do think that it is, and it's important to have that building because, like Jordan was saying, when you drive by and you need help, you may not know, or that body of believers isn't meeting for corporate worship, and so they're not going to have a place that they could go. If you're not meeting at the Case that one day, somebody who is not part of your corporate worship session will not have a place to go or know where to go. That's why I'm a strong believer in a physical church building.
Yeah, and with, like, a physical church building, it makes it easier to invite someone to that. You're not just going to, like, it's like a community center. It's the church, like, the church that matters. It's that church. They know where it is because they've seen it. They drove by. It's familiar.
That's right. It falls into their comfort zone until they get connected.
Here's the problem I have with this. 2 things. I don't like you guys ganging up on me. I feel like you guys have already planned this from the beginning.
Little tag team action.
Yeah. Wait now. Hold on. No, I mean, you guys are brothers, and little brother's trying to suck up to the big brother and just agree with everything he says. So, we'll see. But
And second thing?
Second thing, I mean, I do agree in a sense that yeah, passing a church when somebody's in need or somebody's hurting and they're going through something and they don't have the Christian family around them or an influence around them, then yeah, they might show up at the front door someday on a Sunday morning because it's expected. Everybody, almost anybody knows 9 a.m. on a Sunday morning you can go to a church and you can end up at a service.
Warning. Dusty just changed his stance.
No.
Yes. You just said that yes, a church building is beneficial. The entire time, even back on that day,
Would
you're
you
like,
freaking
"It is
listen
not."
to me? I did not. I can see how that is true, but the end game, I think it hurts because, and I know for me in my life, it is way easy to say I'm reaching out to lost people by saying you should come to church with me, but not really investing into the relationships with those people. I don't know. I think it's a cop out a little bit on some of our evangelism strategies where we just try to invite them to church so that they'll say a prayer and then everything's good now. So if they never come back, we're okay. They said that prayer. That's not how salvation works, and that's not how I think Christ intended the church to work.
No, but that is I'll agree with you. That is a cop out.
Warning, you agreed with me.
That is a cop out. Um, because you're copping out of investing in that person's life.
And I'll say I am as guilty as using that as a cop out as
Oh, yeah.
anybody else.
That's what I'm saying. You are.
Most of the time, you just want to push it on the pastor and just let him
Exactly.
do his job.
And that's
his job.
and that's the problem that
Hey,
I mean,
if they're getting paid this well,
it all runs together. Yeah, we're paying him to reach our friends for Christ. But I mean, that's where this book all runs together. You know, if you read his individual points about things, you're kind of like you're insanely crazy. But if you read it like as a whole, like yeah, it makes sense. We're copying out by just inviting people to a building that's not that you sit in the front and you most likely don't have very meaningful relationships at those moments. And then we pay a pastor to do our evangelism strategy for us. So we invited in the church pastor, you do your thing and make it enjoyable and get them saved, and we've taken all of the responsibility that the gospel has for each believer. We take it away off of ourselves and we put it on the church, and everything that happens in the building is more important than what we do when we're with
it's
them.
actually funny. All the people's lives that I've invested in and I've talked to Christ about and I share with on a daily basis, I have not once invited them to our church.
That's so funny.
No, that is funny. But it's mainly because they don't live in Sand Springs. The ones who live near Sand
But
Springs,
why don't you
I
invite
have
them to
invited
a church?
I have.
Say, hey,
Better believe it.
you should go to by yourself to this other church.
Better believe I've done that, and I've told them who to connect with at certain churches, and I've even told them I would go with them.
But do you think maybe and I'm not saying that they would, because there's probably more issues besides them stepping in the doors of a church, but maybe if you brought them and helped them make relationships with people in that church before they showed up at the front, would that help them?
That probably would. But again, hey, you're relying on that church now, so there's a need for that church building.
Where are they going to make those relationships?
Well, here, let's use Jordan and I as an example. Actually, let's use Jordan.
Jordan.
Because Jordan, we're from Missouri. He goes to college in Arkansas. His influence and his friends are all down in Arkansas. He's not going to bust them up to Missouri every Sunday for a church service.
I don't think he should.
So he gets them involved down there in a local church.
Or why don't you just have church with him, man?
Because Jordan's not always going to be there.
So?
Jordan, again, lives in Missouri.
The church continues. The church doesn't need a leadership. If we're all...
It needs somebody who can interpret properly, though.
This girl told me today, and talked to me today. I'm not lying. She was like, because we're talking about T-shirt designs, and she found out that I was a Christian, and through conversation, and
was it that "Go Make Me a Sandwich" T-shirt?
No, it wasn't. We weren't even talking about a Christian T-shirt. It was just she saw something, a story that we had helped after a tornado relief thing. Anyway, so our conversation went to Christianity. So I'm trying to figure out what she wants this T-shirt design to be. Some gag gift. It's really simple design. And I was like, I'll send you the design. I'll email it to you, and you just let me know if it's good, and then I'll print it. And she's like, well, you be in the same mind as the Lord, and I'll be in the same mind as the Lord, and you'll just know. I'm like, I just want to, yeah. What is that? I don't think that's how it works. You see all the different denominations that we have in this city. Like not everybody who's in tune with the Holy Spirit, we're not all hearing the same thing. Why is that?
Whatever, I'm going to go down to that Mormon
So I'm going to make her the ugliest shirt ever, and then
You're going to blame it on the Lord?
I'm going to say, dude, the Lord told me this was for you, and it was the same. I mean, did you not hear it? Something. That's stupid, but
Just put a pile of poop on there.
yeah, the poop emoji.
Yes.
And yeah.
Well, no, because that might actually be a good gag gift.
Right, that's actually pretty cool.
Yeah, and it might make you actually gag. Dude, do a scratch and sniff.
I was thinking the same thing as a scratch and sniff shirt. That would be awesome. Like you give a shirt to somebody, like, dude, this stinks so bad, and it's like, sorry, I already scratched the shirt.
Hold on. And it's refillable.
You have like the little dryer sheets when you dry it.
Oh man, that's a great idea.
Another million, or just coming up with $1 million ideas.
Yeah.
Right now.
$1 million ideas.
Yeah, but that's one you can incorporate tomorrow.
Yeah, I could. I think I might lose customers if I did a scratch and sniff poop emoji shirt. What else did you learn, Andrew?
Oh my goodness.
I'm trying to get back on track here.
I learned that.
Let's get off the building. Obviously, we
Well,
don't
yeah,
agree.
I was moving on. Yeah, we don't agree on that one. And we don't really agree on the pastor one either. Let's see. I'm looking at the table of contents here. Let's go with Sunday morning costumes. I learned on that one.
Hold on. Did you listen to that podcast talking about the
I
costumes?
think so. That was the one where you talked about, like, you got like the Tommy
Costumes?
Hilfiger shirt, and it was.
Oh
like,
yeah, we had Joe Moore from the Real Life Podcast.
Yeah, I
He
think,
was a
I think
guest.
I remember.
All right, so before you answer and your brother just agrees with whatever you say, what did you think about Sunday morning costumes and how that affects the church?
Well, like half my life I grew up in like church where you had to dress up, and I hated it, and I didn't really care for the church either. So I mean, it went hand in hand, but I don't think you should have to dress up. I mean, God knows your heart. You don't have to put on clothes for him. I mean, you can pray to him in your underwear, and it's still the same as praying to him in a suit.
Drop the mic and walk out.
Drop the mic, walk-
So, I mean,
I agree.
you just agree. I'm just going to disagree, and I believe that you should wear a suit and tie, which I currently do not own. So,
No, I agree because I know exactly the churches he's talking about because I was in those same churches.
I did like what you said that you hating dressing up for church and hating going to church went hand in hand. That's a good statement right there.
That is. It's a word of truth.
Word of truth, but we both agree on that.
But I
Same
also
topic.
learned on that one that we should probably read the chapter
Yeah.
before we announce what is going to be in it.
Yeah, before we say, all right, this guy we're going to talk about next week. Yeah.
Yeah, even though we weren't supposed to read the chapter, we completely guessed that one wrong.
Yeah, that was.
Ministers of music, I still don't consider them pastors, but we had a good friend of ours, William, on the show, who, he does, and he gets a big role out of worship or music portion of worship.
Yeah, I do too.
Where
It's weird. I get more. I'm more impacted during the worship if I'm engaged through using my gifts and talents in playing.
right.
And it's probably just a musician side of me. Not that I'm any good, but when I'm in the crowd, I find myself analyzing what people are doing and how they're sounding, and finding the mistakes that they make and laughing about it. Especially when it's my friends playing and I know they made a mistake and I can see it in their face, and I just wait for them to look at me and I just give them a smile and they start cracking up laughing.
That actually happened. Okay, so last week sermon. It was actually an interesting sermon, and I'm not going to get into it because again, we don't want to associate ourselves with a church.
Yeah, whatever.
However, somebody on stage messed up, and I made eye contact with the pastor because he caught it too, and we both just kind of started laughing between us. And
Kind of had a little giggle laugh.
yeah, because we both caught it. And we looked at each other, and we both just started laughing. Anyways,
But I guess from being in a background of church, that's you've always been in the background of things happening,
right.
that you catch those really easy.
I don't catch any of those. I'm just sitting there trying to sing, and it's usually pretty bad. And so I don't get any enjoyment out of singing too much.
See, neither do I. It's just our upbringing.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, no one can sing in our family.
Nope. Or really cook.
Not really.
But
I can grill every once in a while.
yeah. But what I was going to say, Dusty, is actually, and this is no bash on our music leader at all because I love him to death and I love his voice.
I lead once in a while. What are you talking
I know,
about?
but that's what I was going to say is I actually can get into it more when it's you leading.
Because I'm more in tune with the Spirit.
That's probably what it is. I don't know what it is.
Do you think any of it has to do with when you accepted Christ? I was actually the worship leader then too. And so maybe it's just part of that, just
Flashback.
emotional.
It could be an
Yeah.
emotional attachment. Could
Yeah.
be. And the fact that you were instrumental in my salvation. Could
And
be.
I mess up a lot. So you don't even have to keep watching for it because you just know it's going to happen.
I'm like, all right, we're taking a bet here. Taking pool. When's Dusty go mess up next? You know how much money I made off you?
Well,
I can buy FanDuel.
One thing with leading worship is when you start doing multi services, it's really hard to be as we show up on Sunday morning and we play the songs a couple times and then I'm having the verse here. We play the songs a couple times and then we take a break and then we do a worship set and then we take a good hour break and then we play another worship set. And it's really hard to not just be performing for the second service especially because I've just poured my heart out a little bit, in the songs and I'm supposed to do it again like it's fresh and new
Well, no, according to our guest that week, you are because you worship at home, or what he said is he worships at home, and then when he comes, he is just performing.
Yeah, that's weird to me.
That's a lot like what Dad does. Like he doesn't get
Your dad preaches.
He doesn't get spiritual what do you call it?
A fed.
Like he doesn't get filled. Yeah, like from preaching, he has to feed himself elsewhere.
Yeah, that's good. So he goes to other churches. No. Do you remember? You're probably too young, but when your dad first became a youth pastor, do you remember that?
I just remember the Diet Coke machine in the back. That's the only thing I remember.
That's about me with cars, man. I just remember the pinball machine in the garage. I never got to work on it with my dad. Okay. Well, because he'd always listen to the sermons and then preach them word for word. Listen to all these, famous sermons.
Matt Carnes, Bob Caldwell,
Bodie Bogdan.
yeah. Jared Altick. Yeah, all those guys. I know, because I would know exactly what Dad was going to say because I would ride with him to Springfield on Wednesday.
And then you would be like, you messed up.
Yeah.
But, yeah, I was just wondering if you remembered that.
That's funny.
Do you remember Dusty and I throwing you around?
Where?
Which time?
At the house.
Probably.
We played catch with you.
Yeah, we did.
I remember when you guys wrapped me up in a blanket downstairs or something, and it was like, I don't even remember. It was. I just remember. I remember being in a blanket, and you guys wrapped me up and wouldn't let me go. And then I went. I think you guys made me go down the stairs in a sled one time.
That sounds right.
That sounds about right. Yeah.
And then I remember Mom was really mad. You guys broke the couch, and then you had a paintball war inside.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're a little too into paintball that year.
And then what?
We killed Bob the Builder.
Yeah. You killed. I did not cry about that.
Probably. You cried a lot.
I was 5.
Oh man, I'm so old.
I was like Aaron.
Yeah.
Was I that annoying?
You know what makes you feel
yes.
really old
Oh,
is when some kid that you used to wrap in a blanket and throw down the stairs in a sled is now in college and really smart.
Right. And bigger than you.
Well, anybody. It doesn't take much to be bigger than me. My 7-year-old son is getting to that point.
He's also more athletic than you.
No. Come on. Let's not get too crazy.
All right, let's get back to this. We need to start wrapping this up.
Already, we're okay.
We're just getting the flow.
I know, right? So really, our big chapters, I would say, tithing, clergy salary. That was, I guess, our last big chapter. So, in which Dusty and I, we kind of almost sided with the book in this aspect. that the tithe was a set up as a Levitical tax, and we got a lot of flack for that one. And we, we still believe it. We've read the evidence that supports it. I've looked at the actual verses in the Bible. I've read the footnotes that go along with it. I've researched other scholars who believe the same thing. I've read those that don't believe that. And my opinion is, it was a tax system. And for that, I don't apologize.
Oh, you're so tough guy behind the
Right.
mic over there.
Whatever. I'll meet you. Let's meet halfway, Dusty.
I guess you want my takeaway point? Is that what you want?
Yeah. What's your takeaway?
Okay, so my takeaway is this. You hear the argument, well, at least the church is doing something. Something is better than nothing. And I've kind of struggled with that a little bit because I don't necessarily think that if we're just trying, that's good enough. Even if the system's flawed, there's lots of corruption. There's lots of waste.
Wait. Are you about to speak against participation trophies?
Something like that. And so, which for my son, I mean, he's not that athletic, so it was pretty nice when he got a trophy. But even he knew we lost. Why did we get this trophy? Even he knew.
Politically correct.
Anyways, I was just kind of listening to some sermons and stuff, and I found Amos chapter 5. I know it's the Old Testament, but so is tithing, okay? So Amos chapter 5.
But I just said we don't believe in tithing.
I know, but if you did, and you're trying to
well,
argue,
I
it's
took okay. No,
fine.
that's gonna come. Hold on,
joke.
that is gonna come off wrong. I do believe in tithing. I do not believe in what pastors say at the pulpit that it's a mandatory 10%. I believe it's
and that God hates you if you do not give.
That's right.
God will not bless you if you do not give.
That's right. 10% as a tithe,
God will
but
only
you still
bless
have to
you if you
give.
more.
You still have to give an offering, but your tithe is 10%.
Yeah.
No, that's not right.
Okay, so Amos chapter 5, it's kind of like God's yelling at people kind of book in the Bible here.
That happens a lot in the Bible.
Yeah, and so I've always said that, like, I feel like, my question is, could it possibly we be just as stupid as the Israelites were in the Bible? And, we take a system that God made, and in 100 years or 200 years, we just filtered it back into the same stupid stuff we were doing before that Jesus actually came to get rid of. And so I've been wrestling with that because that's what I feel like. I feel like, man, God came and he set up this great system, and then we started putting the crud back into it, the crud that makes it more acceptable to the secular culture or fit in more with the secular culture, which is what Constantine did, which was good for the church in a sense where it led to more acceptability in their culture, but at the same time we're losing some of the power, I guess you can say, of the love one another daily kind of attitude. So anyway, so I was just kind of listening. Actually, I think this was Francis Chan that I was listening to, but Amos chapter 5, verse 21. God says this. He says, I hate and despise your religious festivals. Your assemblies are a stench to me. Even though you bring me burnt offerings and grain offerings, I will not accept them. Though you bring me choice fellowship offerings, I have no regard for them. Away with the noise of your songs. I will not listen to the music of your harps. But let justice roll on like a river, righteousness like a never falling stream. Did you bring your sacrifices and offerings for 40 years in the wilderness, people of Israel? You have lifted up a shrine to your king, a pedestal of your idols, the star of your God, which you made for yourselves. And so when I read that verse, man, it kind of scares me a little bit with what church is. And just because we meet on Sunday morning doesn't mean that's an acceptable gift to God. And people, and I might be wrong, but people are saying things like, When they use that verse, two or more are gathered, God will hear your cry. I don't. I think that's a little misused a little bit, because just because we tell God to do something doesn't mean He's obligated to do it. God is not our lap puppy that we call whenever we want Him. And I think as a church, we just assume that just because we're singing praise to God, what we're feeling is from God. And I think sometimes we're feeling a little bit more of, I think some of the feelings that we get, we say are the Holy Spirit sometimes, but really it's just ourselves wanting to feel this way, wanting to feel better about ourselves, but we're really not tapping into the power of the Holy Spirit. Does that make sense? And
Yes.
a little bit. And so I don't know, so it just scares me that as I look at the church in general, the amount of money and time that's wasted on making these 1 hour services happen. Yes, there's some churches where that 1 hour service is impactful to people's lives, but overall, that is not the case in the church. And overall, most of those things are just a stupid noise to God, I think. And it's just a stupid offering that we try to bring, even though they brought him the burnt offerings, the grain offerings, the best. God wasn't saying these weren't the best, but it was because they didn't regard what their first love. They didn't love people, and they didn't love the poor, and they began to build offerings and idols mainly for their own feelings. They made their own gods for themselves, and it became more about themselves than about God. And I'm scared that that's kind of where the church has gone.
All right, you're repeating yourself, and I'm going to cut off your 10-minute
Thank
rant.
you. Cut that down, please.
So, first off, I wanted to come back with I can't get used to you and your glasses.
Sorry, my wife thinks that looks hot. I kind of. Yeah.
Wear them for her, not for me.
Well,
The real love.
right?
Wear nothing for me.
You got it, baby.
Second thing, I actually forgot because you just kept going on.
Well, I didn't see if you were wanting to. I didn't know if you were wanting to talk or not. I couldn't tell. You weren't really reacting to anything I was saying. You weren't giving me any kind of
No
feedback.
cues.
I don't. I just let you rant.
But you know what I mean, right? Like, I'm scared that is the case. I might be wrong with the whole Holy Spirit thing, but
I mean, a lot of people just go into church, put on their happy face, act like they're so holy and everything, when really they're not living a godly life at all.
and just because in the Bible even warns about this, but just because they've said a prayer on that Sunday morning service, that doesn't mean they're going to heaven. Just because they show up, like you said, on Sunday morning, they put on the act, they become a good person, doesn't necessarily mean they're going to heaven. Now, I say that, and how can I judge people? But still.
Mr. Spudchecker. I had to go back to him.
Oh, yeah.
Because what Jordan reminded me, or what Jordan just said reminded me of Mr. Spudchecker. So before we wrap this up, this is going to be the last discussion we have about this book. We are done with this book.
We are done.
Thank you. We're actually having a book burning session. Where do we go from here, Dusty?
Where do we go from here? Name that band.
I don't know.
I think it's Pillar.
Okay.
Not 100% sure, though. How do we disappear?
I
They're
think
from Tulsa.
It's Skillet. Just kidding. I know Rob actually was the lead worship pastor at Life Church on 41st, and then he became the campus pastor there.
Yeah.
So,
Speaking of corporate model and working your way up the ladder.
touche, senor.
Just a little bit.
All right, so where do we go from here, Dusty? What's next?
Well, just when you guys thought it was over, we're going to continue having a podcast.
What? I don't
I
get a
know.
vacation.
No vacation. I don't know.
But you went to Houston.
I did. So what?
Dang. Now I'm obligated to listen to more podcasts.
Exactly. So you must subscribe, Jordan.
Rate and review.
Rate and review.
Can I rate and review my own podcast?
Yes, I did.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, it's a great podcast.
Yeah. Best speakers ever.
Especially that Andrew guy. He's so amazing.
Well, we're gonna continue to tap into our resources. I mean, we've grown up in church. I've been in ministry. We just have tons of ministry friends that we're gonna be able to bring on, and we're just gonna continue to tackle topics like I'm sure we'll come back to tithing as much as Andrew's like that one, and other things. I mean, I'm really interested in. I have a friend who's a pastor at a Pentecostal church, and I'm really interested in the whole tithings, or not tithings,
Speaking in tongues.
speaking in tongues,
And I want to know how they tithe too.
and how they tithe. Yeah.
Every guest we're going to have on, I'm going to talk to them about tithing.
We're gonna have them give us their tithing statements before they get on the podcast, just a review. Make sure you're really meaning what you're saying.
And then one of the topics I want to talk about, which we're going to try and get a guest on for this one, is hell. Are there two different hells?
What?
Oh, yes. Because there is
Can we tell some ghost hunting stories on that episode?
Yes.
We got plenty of those.
We can. Because actually, and this was a great message I recently heard, that there was a totally different view of hell that the Bible describes that I've never thought about, and I've never read it that way. But there is so much, so much scripture, pointing this way that it was such mind blowing that I want to discuss that now. I'm
Okay.
interested.
Well, I better figure out what you're talking about so I can have some sort of knowledge on that.
Why you never read the chapters, anyways?
But I listen to things, and I talk to people. I did other research. Yeah.
All right, so we're gonna start this Twitter thing. We're gonna see if we can beat Jordan.
Let's get as many followers as possible.
Yeah, but we're gonna combine our accounts.
Yeah, we'll combine. But not cross streams.
No cross and stream, just
We'll,
how does that work?
We're gonna
big
be back
stream,
to back.
one step at a time, Jordan. We're gonna figure this thing out.
Yeah.
140 followers at a time.
Yes, exactly. So thanks, Jordan, for being on the podcast. I mean, we'll probably have to cut out because you talk so much. I mean, you're just like, golly, it's not about you, okay?
Right, the guest is not supposed to run the show, Jordan.
You gotta tell me this beforehand.
No.
And
That's the last time I let you prep the guest, Dusty.
yeah, who picked this guy? Hey, when's Maya freeze? I'm joking.
He's pretty heavy in baseball right now, so it's gonna be a few months.
That's right. All right. So we will be back next week with more awesomeness.
I'm actually interested. What are we gonna be back with next week?
I have no idea. We'll let the spirit guide us, Andrew.
Wow. Scratch a sniff
Hey,
t-shirts.
I tap into the Holy Spirit. You'll tap into the Holy Spirit, and we'll show up next week with the same idea. That's how it works, right?
It better be a scratch a sniff t-shirt. Later.